It's time for the 77th season of NASCAR Cup Series racing. For the first time in the charter era, there's 36 drivers that are going to be vying for success in the regular season with the end goal of competing for the Bill France Cup. Judging off of the chaos of last season, it is going to be a pressure-packed 26 weeks in the regular season for the drivers competing in 2025. NRF Productions presents The Spotter's Guide, predicting the 2025 NASCAR Cup Series regular season. The merchandise hauler for Ross Chastain draws a crowd because he is the throwback to traditional NASCAR. He's the blue-collar, hard-working watermelon farmer in an era full of rich kids. It honestly sucks that Ross Chastain has been off the wall, on the chain as a driver since he was criticized at Darlington in 2023 for his aggressive driving. Ross Chastain's aura as a driver needs to be restored back to 2022 levels of magic. The two things that are going to define Ross Chastain's success is number one, consistency. In 2024, the number one team threw away a lot of points, whether it was mistakes on their end or just getting into awful crashes at inopportune times like Texas and Nashville. The second thing is that Trackhouse Racing has to get faster. This organization has plateaued into basically being Chip Ganassi with great marketing. If Trackhouse wants their A-tier driver to reach his full potential, they have to get faster on the racetrack. So what was the most impressive victory of 2024? The first thing that probably comes to your mind is the onslaught of thrilling superspeedway finishes. I'd argue it was Austin Cindric's win at Gateway in 2024. Maybe it was luck, but this was an instance of luck occurring when preparation met opportunity. Because of that, this was the closest glimpse of the Austin Cindric that we saw dominate the Xfinity Series. Austin Cindric is a driver that has a lot of power. He has a NASCAR Cup Series seat at the legendary Team Penske, and his dad is a prominent figure on the team. Cindric has the great responsibility to be a championship contender like Wallace and Keselowski before him. Like his Penske teammates, he needs to rise to the occasion and win big marquee races in order to solidify that he's a Penske driver. If Austin Dillon wanted to be a successful entrepreneur and rack in that big money, he could always start a side gig as a Dale Earnhardt impersonator, because that's his legacy as a NASCAR Cup Series driver. The only thing the imitator hasn't mimicked is Dale Earnhardt's statistics. 2023 and 2024 have been two of the worst seasons on record for Austin Dillon. Now, is Austin Dillon fizzling out of the Cup Series? Look, even with his racing credibility in the dumpster after Richmond, his grandfather does own a Cup team. The main concern, however, is that Richard Childress Racing is becoming irrelevant in the Gen 7 era. RCR is trying to adapt to modern NASCAR by making several personnel changes behind the scenes. One of those moves is with the number 3 team, as they are turning to Richard Boswell to make Austin Dillon great again. 2025 might be the last chance for Austin Dillon to show that his career still has some tread left. Because if he and RCR continue their regression, it might be time for him to trade out his fire suit for a business suit. Now, in that situation, hopefully he wouldn't be as scummy as a businessman as he is a race car driver. 2024 was Noah Gragson's redemption arc. Stewart-Haas Racing brought out the best in Noah Gragson, both professionally as a driver and personally as one of NASCAR's most colorful characters. This season, Front Row Motorsports will be the third different place Gragson has called home. Now, that's not ideal for a young driver like Gragson who is only in his third year in the Cup Series. There needs to be some familiarity in order for him to thrive. That comfort is going to be Drew Blickensderfer, as he will continue to mature Gragson into the professional race car driver he needs to be. Noah Gragson this season feels like a dark horse. He isn't too far removed from his dominant 9-win Xfinity season with Junior Motorsports. In 2025, can Drew Blickensderfer and Front Row Motorsports get that caliber driver out of Gragson? Kyle Larson is a demon on wheels, like the iconic character that shares a number with him. No matter the racing series, Larson likes to be the fastest and most daring driver in the field. Still, every great driver has their kryptonite. For Jeff Gordon, it was restart. Trust me, I know. Kyle Larson's kryptonite is himself. His over-aggressive driving has made his career, yet has also prevented him from winning multiple victories and multiple cup championships. This is something that Kyle Larson has acknowledged that he needs to work on in 2025. When it comes to what they're chasing after, both Kyle Larson and Cliff Daniels aren't just going after a second championship this season. A win in the Daytona 500 will allow Kyle Larson to join an exclusive category. He will join an elite list that have won all 4 crown jewels and a cup championship, which is easier said than done. We are talking about Kyle Larson at a super speedway track. If anything, I'm more confident that Kyle Larson is going to continue to dominate at the intermediates. In the Gen 7 era, Kyle Larson leads multiple stats categories at intermediates like wins, top 5s, average driver rating, and laps led. In 2025, it is expected that Kyle Larson is going to continue to do phenomenal things in both NASCAR and in the Indianapolis 500. When Brad Keselowski left Team Penske for RFK Racing, it was seen as career suicide. And honestly, you can still say that today. Team Penske has won the last 3 Cup Series championships, plus Brad's replacement in the number 2 car won the one race that continues to haunt his career. Although Brad Keselowski has shown that he doesn't need to join the Kentucky Derby to win races in the year 2025. For 2025, the number 6 team has transitioned into their next phase, compete for championships. This is shown by Brad Keselowski's former crew chief, Jeremy Bowens, reuniting with him at RFK. They are chasing after the fruits of success that Team Penske has savored in the 2020s. There are many goals that Brad Keselowski still wants to check off as a driver. Win the Daytona 500, win at his home race in Michigan, plus win the Cup Championship as a driver owner. If he can cross off some of those milestones, it would give Brad Keselowski some assurance that leaving a powerhouse like Penske was the greatest decision of his life. Spire Motorsports continues to be the New York Mets of the NASCAR Cup Series. This franchise continues to be unfazed at the money coming out of their checkbook, which it's easy to understand why, as they know they are going to get a return on their investment, considering that Jeff Dickerson has made his name in racing by scouting out talent. He sees tremendous upside to a driver like Justin Haley. He may be a young buck, but he drives like a veteran that can squeeze top 10 finishes out of a Rick Ware racing car. Now you pair him up with a Cup champion in Rodney Childers, and Spire's flagship number 7 car has the right people in place. Spire Motorsports wants to become Hendrick Light. If the number 7 team is as good as advertised, maybe Justin Haley wins Spire their first Cup Series race on pure pace.
I'm Kyle Busch. You know, the Chevy's too damn slow. I can't catch up to these goddamn Toyotas. These Penske boys got me beat to hell.
A driver with over 63 Cup wins and over 200 NASCAR victories has forgotten what victory lane feels like. Yeah, Kyle Busch did win 2 truck races last year. Still, for the first time as a full-time driver in the NASCAR Cup Series, he had a goose egg in the wins column. The performance for the number 8 team in 2025 was straight up unacceptable. A straight up failure, considering that you have a top tier talent in Kyle Busch and a championship winning crew chief in Randall Burnett. The pressure is on Richard Childress Racing to restore Kyle Busch back to relevance. In 2025, they have responded with some huge personnel changes. Honestly, I think that 2025 is going to make the distant future clearer for both Kyle Busch and Richard Childress Racing. If KFB wins early in the regular season, I don't see why he wouldn't sign at least a 1-year extension. However, if they struggle right out of the gate and it's a repeat of 2024, this could be the last time we see Kyle Busch in the Cup Series. I mean, you think about it, he's already made his money. Why stick around if you don't have a chance to win on Sunday? Meanwhile, for RCR, they would return back to the dark ages of irrelevancy like they were in the Gen 6 era. Without question, 2025 is a must-win, must-make the playoffs type of season for both Kyle Busch and Richard Childress Racing. So 2024 was the status quo for Chase Elliott. He was consistent, but he failed to win races, especially the crown jewels in the Cup Series. You know, I find it ironic that Chase Elliott, the driver that succeeded NASCAR's crown jewel GOAT, has still yet to win a marquee event. In 2025, the number 9 team needs to get faster and win multiple races. Just because Chase Elliott doesn't want to be Mr. Popular doesn't mean he has to play a sad second fiddle to Kyle Larson every single year. If Chase Elliott continues his plateau in performance, I think it's time for changes. This to me is a big year for Alan Gustafson because he's a solid crew chief in the Cup Series, but I do believe that he is holding Chase Elliott back from his full potential. Honestly, if he can't lead Chase Elliott to multiple victories this season, I think it's time to promote him to a more technical role at HMS and have Chase start fresh with a new crew chief. Although, maybe we won't have to worry about that because so far in 2025, Chase Elliott is undefeated. Wow, for 2025, Kaulig Racing is actually taking the NASCAR Cup Series seriously. Not necessarily in the renumbered number 10 car as Ty Dillon makes his return to the Cup Series. This move just makes my head want to explode. Ty Dillon is a backwards lateral move compared to Daniel Hemric. Yes, he has the Cup experience and can bring that car home in one piece, but that's the exact same thing that Daniel Hemric did last year. Now, does this matter? Not really. We all know that Ty Dillon is just a placeholder driver to develop a race team. Guarantee you in 1 year's tops, we'll be talking about how Daniel Suarez or even Christian Eckes is going to have that car pushing for a 180 in performance. Denny Hamlin is at a happy medium in his NASCAR Cup Series career as a driver that has both his physical stamina and years of racing knowledge. This year should be another hashtag all-in year. It's Denny's year until he loses the championship in heartbreaking fashion.
It's our year. I just feel like we've got it all put together. We got the speed, every single type of racetrack, and, nothing to stop us at this point.
Would you tell people it's finally this year's the year you're going to win the championship? Just call it.
All right, this is it. This is the year. This is the year it's going to happen.
It's just too bad that Joe Gibbs Racing doesn't share that same approach. Chris Gabehart was poached at the 11th hour without Denny's approval to become the team's competition director. Meanwhile, Chris Gale is the plug-and-play crew chief for Denny Hamlin in 2025. There's also a lot of financial questions behind the scenes considering that both FedEx and Mavis left as primary sponsors. Denny Hamlin was without question the biggest loser of the NASCAR offseason. In a NASCAR Cup Series garage where multiple teams got better, the 11 team has regressed. So the question is, can Denny Hamlin continue to prove that he's competitive? Now, with all these changes, I'm not saying that Denny Hamlin is going to become washed. Denny Hamlin is going to contend for victories this season, namely at the short tracks like Richmond, Bristol, and Martinsville, especially with Goodyear bringing a softer tire to where tire management is going to be more important. Those tracks to me are Denny Hamlin's greatest chance to win a race in 2025. However, at the same time, we've seen throughout NASCAR history that one driver can't just carry an entire team on his back. Let's not deny that Chris Gale is a massive step back from a guy like Chris Gabehart. This to me does not strike me as a driver-crew chief pairing that is going to win many races, and that might spell trouble for them not only in November, but also August. Ryan Blaney fans have been the NASCAR fan base that spent their off-season in the closet drinking wine or bringing the toaster into the bathtub like many on DBC have. That's not just the case with his 7 DNFs or the heartbreaking losses at both Homestead and Phoenix. To the dismay of the girls and the gays, Ryan Blaney is now a happily married man. He'll now look to chase after his third ring in 3 years by winning his second Cup Series championship. While many, like myself, would like to not see him be a ghost for a majority of the regular season, he and Jonathan Hassler have found a formula that works. Stay alive in the regular season and the playoffs until the schedule tips into their favor when you go to tracks like Martinsville and Phoenix. These are the strengths of Ryan Blaney. As we've seen, his car just does a great job hugging the bottom better than anyone else. The quality of Ryan Blaney's 2025 season shouldn't be judged until late October, because that's the time of year where this number 12 team knows how to turn on the boosters. AJ Allmendinger is back where he belongs, racing on Sunday afternoons in the NASCAR Cup Series. A veteran in racing is going to have a veteran on the pit box in Trent Owens. To me, this pairing has all the makings of pulling off an upset victory to make the playoffs. Now, where would that be? Well, AJ Allmendinger, of course, is the greatest road course driver of our generation. Watkins Glen, Coda, Sonoma, and Mexico are going to be win or bust for this number 16 team. Do not sleep on AJ Allmendinger at Homestead in March. He has been quietly underrated at that racetrack, and if Kaulig Racing can step up performance-wise with Ty Norris overseeing the competition, maybe, just maybe, AJ Allmendinger wins an intermediate race. Modern NASCAR's most underrated driver. 2024 was another so close yet so far away type of season for Chris Buescher. He was just 1/1000th of a second away from another NASCAR playoff berth. Meanwhile, the pain of Reddick's bad slide job at Darlington in May wouldn't be fully realized until Darlington in September. On paper, Buescher had a solid season statistically and with his win at Watkins Glen. However, the history books and the pocketbooks show that this was a worse season than Embarrassin' Burton and the Wood brothers. Chris Buescher, Scott Graves, and the number 17 team are still upper mid-pack. Because of that, you're going to get seasons like 2024 where if they don't win a race, they are at a massive risk of missing the playoffs. The question for the 17 team in 2025 is whether they can get out of that upper mid-pack and into being a yearly contender. If they do so, this is the best team at RFK, and they can do massive things when it comes to the playoffs. Martin Truex Jr. has officially rode his tracker boat into the sunset as a full-time driver, which means Antonio Brown now has a new favorite current NASCAR driver as Chase Briscoe takes over the Crackermobile. To try to put a bit of a spin on the iconic Forrest Gump quote, "Life is like a fishing pond. You never know what you're gonna get." Chase Briscoe, to me, is the biggest unknown of this 2025 NASCAR Cup Series season. On one hand, Chase Briscoe should fit the Joe Gibbs Racing mold. So far, he has built a reputation of being the driver that thrives in uncomfortable, pressure-packed situations. This is an absolute necessity to thrive in modern NASCAR. Although he does have a tendency, like Kyle Larson, to be over-aggressive, and James Small is basically JGR's Alan Gustafson. Some of Small's decision-making makes you wonder why Martin Truex Jr. didn't just pull in Antonio Brown and quit mid-race. We all know that Chase Briscoe has the potential to become Cup Series champion. In 2025, we're going to find out if that potential becomes reality and Briscoe crosses the bridge into becoming a Cup Series contender. Many expected that 2024 was the year where Christopher Bell was going to get it all together. With 3 early season wins, it was looking like his year. Hopefully, teammate Denny Hamlin prepared him for the massive letdown in the second half of the season. Joe Gibbs Racing, of all teams, went winless in the last 18 races. Plus, for the second year in a row, Christopher Bell's season ended with a wall ride. The last few seasons, the number 20 team is knocked on the door, and at this point, they're ready to saw it down to take the Bill France Cup for themselves. I think when it comes to the promotion of Chris Gabehart, the team that's going to be impacted the most is going to be this number 20 group. Not just because you have a tremendous talent in Christopher Bell that has progressed throughout his career. I want to give some credit to Adam Stevens because there's a lot of glazing of guys like Rodney Childers and Cliff Daniels. Adam Stevens is a 2-time champion. He helped mature guys like Kyle Busch, and now he is getting the most out of a top-tier talent like Christopher Bell. There is no question that the number 20 team is going to be the torchbearers for JGR in 2025. All they need now is a little bit more organizational speed, especially at Phoenix, to become season champions. In the Gen 7 era, the Wood brothers have been a quasi-fourth Penske car. However, 3 years of embarrassing Harrison Burton made you think they were aligned with Rick Ware Racing. The historic, majestic Motorcraft Quick Lane 4 deserves a better fate than being the caboose of the NASCAR Cup Series. For 2025, they're getting back to their roots. Grassroots racer Josh Berry and veteran Cup engineer Miles Stanley fit the Wood brothers racing mold. Especially a driver like Josh Berry, who is the antithesis to modern NASCAR. In an industry now that is signing 15 to 16-year-olds to development deals for the likes of Hendrick Motorsports, Josh Berry has had to claw his way to the top level of stock car racing. Now, for the first time in his Cup Series career, he has stability. The things to look at when analyzing Josh Berry this season is how he runs at the traditional NASCAR tracks. In his rookie season, he was great at the likes of Richmond, Bristol, Darlington, and also Daytona. At the same time, can he stop crashing like a Windows computer? He's gonna need to stop hitting the wall and getting into so many incidents in this 2025 season.
Joey Logano steps into history!
There are only 2 guarantees in this life, since you can exploit loopholes in the system to dodge paying taxes. The only guarantees in this life are death and, in even years, a brilliant smoke show by Smokin' Joe on the Phoenix front stretch as season champion. Debate the legitimacy of the championship all you want, but you cannot possibly look into Joey Logano's squinty eyes and call him a Mickey driver. He will rightfully laugh at you because Joey Logano and Paul Wolfe are masterminds at making other teams' weaknesses their strengths. There is no driver in the modern Cup Series as clutch as Joey Logano in must-win situations, especially championship races. Joey Logano deserves his flowers because he has mastered the art of finding a way to win on Sunday. So in 2025, are we going to get the full Joey Logano experience? Well, considering that it's 2025, it's going to be a regressive year for Joey Logano. Now, there's no doubt in my mind that Joey Logano is going to win at least one regular season race to make the playoffs, but I'm sure Joey Logano and his fans are already counting down the days until the 2026 Daytona 500. So with McDonald's doing celebrity meals, one could ask, what would a hypothetical Bubba Wallace meal look like? Based on his career so far, it features a McRib because he appears in Victory Lane sporadically. He's also got a batch of McDonald's world-famous fries because Bubba can get pretty salty at times. Plus, a Dr. Pepper to wash it all down. In the last year, Bubba Wallace has signed a multi-year extension with 2311 Racing. So it's safe to say he's not going to be putting the fries in the bag like Donald Trump anytime soon. But Bubba Wallace needs to step it up. The main critique about Bubba Wallace is that he is marketed as a face of NASCAR. 2311 is pushing him, and they also built the entire organization around Bubba Wallace. Still, Bubba Wallace continues to be greatly outperformed by his teammate Tyler Reddick. While Reddick won 3 races, the regular season championship, and made the championship 4, Bubba Wallace didn't win a race and missed the playoffs entirely. Considering the strides 2311 has made, that is unacceptable. Bubba Wallace has to step it up, and Charles Dennehy is going to be the guy to look to turn the tides for 2311's flagship driver. Many of modern NASCAR's elite crew chiefs were able to win races and go deep into the playoffs in their first year. That's a positive for Bubba Wallace, who absolutely needs to win a regular season race for the first time in his career. The unveil of William Byron's 2025 Exalta livery left fans as stunned as Dennis Coover's character in I Love You, Beth Cooper.
Oh, God.
While William Byron carries the number and the legacy of Jeff Gordon, deep down he has more qualities of a Jimmy Johnson. Like Jimmy and Chad, Byron and Rudy Fugle aren't as dominant and tend to struggle in the dog days of summer. Yet, they find ways to win, rise to the occasion in special moments, and advance far in the postseason. Rick Hendrick's team is always going to be championship contenders, just as long as Byron and Rudy Fugle continue to call 4400 Papa Joe Hendrick Boulevard their home. Still, this is year 8 and Byron is still chasing after the Bill France Cup. Like in the last 4 seasons, William Byron is going to bust out of the gate as hot as his Exalt delivery. How he carries that momentum all the way throughout the season is going to determine whether this is William Byron's year to become season champion. Like father, like son, Todd Gilliland will carry the torch for Love's Travel Shops in the NASCAR Cup Series like his dad David did in the early 2010s. There is a lot to love about Todd Gilliland in 2025. Except for the fact that Todd Gilliland is abandoning his family number and his old team. In shades of Clint Bowyer 2009, Todd Gilliland joins a new team at Front Row Motorsports led by Chris Larson. To me, this move reeks of, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Why split up Todd Gilliland and Ryan Burgenti? Maybe Chris Larson is the better crew chief, but Gilliland and Burgenti clearly hit on something in the 2024 season. Now Todd Gilliland isn't going to start off as strong, considering that he has to go through the trials and tribulations of working with a new crew chief. My prediction for Todd Gilliland in 2025 is that he is going to regress a little bit and possibly take the back seat to new teammates Noah Gragson and Zane Smith. Maybe the pressure of Bubba Wallace will be alleviated in 2025. Have you not seen who Denny Hamlin and Michael Jordan have signed to a third 2311 car? To Riley Herbst's credit, yes, he has improved from his days of crashing cars at Joe Gibbs Racing. He has elevated himself to a B-tier driver in the NASCAR Xfinity Series. In my opinion, Riley Herbst needed more time in the Xfinity Series and does not deserve this caliber of an opportunity. To make things even worse, Davin Restivo is going to be moving up to the Cup Series with Riley Herbst. Did Denny and MJ just not see how much the Spire 71 struggled last year in the first 18 races with a rookie driver, rookie crew chief combo? For Riley Herbst in 2025, his floor is being the new Harrison Burton in the Cup Series. However, I do see a scenario where maybe Riley doesn't do as bad, gets 3 to 5 top 10 finishes, and finishes 25th in points. For now, Zane Smith has avoided being the next Casey Atwood. Front Row Motorsports and Ford have forgiven Zane for his PR slip-up when he joined Trackhouse. Zane Smith will drive the 38 in the NASCAR Cup Series. This is a number that has a special place in the heart of Zane Smith. While I do think that Front Row Motorsports messed up by not pairing him with Chris Lawson, inheriting the old 38 team that had stability last season isn't a bad thing. Ryan Burgenti has Gen 7 experience and has also shown that he can progress a Cup team. His next task is going to be helping Zane make that next step as a Cup driver and making Justin Marks toss and turn at night. Zane Smith last year was the most improved driver from the first half to the second half. After he got his second place finish at Nashville, his statistics mirrored Rookie of the Year Carson Hocevar. Zane Smith is an incredibly talented driver, and he is hoping to utilize this second chance to the best of his ability. The Haas Factory team emerged from the smoke and ashes of Stewart-Haas Racing. This organization will be taken under the wing of Brad Keselowski. Haas will now be a 4th RFK racing car in all but name. Meanwhile, Aaron Kramer, former RFK lead engineer for the 17 team, will make his crew chief debut for the 41 team. For its 3rd iteration in the NASCAR Cup Series, Haas will have a stone-cold driver behind the wheel. Cole Custer was buried alive and now he's back from the dead. He has been gifted an extremely rare second chance at competing competitively in the NASCAR Cup Series. Cole Custer has rebuilt this stock and has a strong racing resume. He's won 2 Xfinity championships, the 2023 season-long title and the 2024 regular season title. He has Generation 7 experience. He is a winner at the NASCAR Cup Series level, and people forget that he won Rookie of the Year by beating Christopher Bell and Tyler Reddick. Hoping to apply what he learned in the Xfinity Series, Cole Custer is hoping that 2025 will be his redemption arc in the Cup Series. So what is the most disappointing team-driver combo in the entire NASCAR Cup Series? Well, look no further than car number 42. John Hunter Nemechek is just 1 year removed from a dominant 7-win season in Xfinity. The Legacy Motor Club is owned by successful Truck Series champion Maury Gallagher and 7-time Cup Series champion as a driver Jimmy Johnson. Despite all that success, it hasn't translated to the Cup Series. Last season, John Hunter Nemechek finished dead last in the Cup Drivers' points. Meanwhile, the 42 car was 35th of the 36 chartered teams. So the question is, what steps are being taken to ensure that last year's disaster doesn't happen again? Well, the Legacy Motor Club continued to make many team and personnel changes. For the 42 team, Travis Mack joins the club to be the crew chief. Not bad, but is this really an improvement over Ben Buescher? Honestly, the bar is low. Legacy, please just make John Hunter Nemechek not look like the 3rd mandatory stage caution. Continuing the misery, Erik Jones is the Squidward of NASCAR. He's been misunderstood his entire career. Despite winning the 2015 Truck Series championship and not 1, but 2 Southern 500s, his talent has been unrequited by the NASCAR garage. Erik Jones nowadays spends his Sundays fighting tooth and nail just to get a top 25. Some of this is on Erik Jones because he signed up for this long term. With Dave Ellens leaving the club, Ben Buescher looks to be the guy to bring out the most in Erik Jones. Alright, Kyle Busch fans, I know you're trying to hide your laughter, you can let it out. The New Year's resolution for Legacy Motor Club is to make positive changes. Judging by the new logo and new font, I'm not necessarily sure they're on the right track. So what makes the NASCAR Cup Series special compared to other racing leagues is that this is the best of the best. Almost all of the Cup Series drivers are good, but few are extraordinary. Tyler Reddick is a legitimate driver with talent that makes you think that he's NASCAR's Michael Jordan. He's a driver that rises under the pressure, whether it was winning the regular season championship last year with the flu, or ripping the boards at Homestead on older tires to make it to the championship 4. This guy is that good. 23XI is well ahead of their 5-year plan to become legitimate championship contenders. With nothing changed for Tyler Reddick and Billy Scott in 2025, there's a good chance that a 2025 NASCAR Cup Series championship banner might be hung in the rafters of Airspeed after this season. To me, Ricky Stenhouse Jr. is the biggest what if in modern NASCAR. What if he got his fair shot on a contender rather than a declining and outdated Roush team? For Ricky Stenhouse Jr., he's made peace with this personally as the lead driver on the single car number 47 team. Rather than prove the haters wrong, Stenhouse is trying to prove the people in the shop right. And in the last 2 seasons, he's done that as Ricky Stenhouse Jr. has put together consecutive winning seasons in the NASCAR Cup Series for the first time in his career. Ricky Stenhouse Jr. is in his statistical prime, and he is going to look to keep up that winning success as the 47 team goes through some ownership changes. There's a lot of questions about Hayek Motorsports, but I like this for 2 reasons. Not only because I honestly like the idea that they abandoned the Geschichters and Kroger, especially in modern NASCAR when we've seen teams like Bill Davis Racing and Germain go out of business because they lost their 1 full season sponsor. Hayek Motorsports is also serious about being competitive as they've brought in new engineers and some new ideas to become more competitive with the likes of Hendrick as well as Joe Gibbs. Honestly, considering all of that, I believe that Ricky Stenhouse Jr. is the driver that everybody is sleeping on to make the playoffs. Alex Bowman is the most overhated driver in the NASCAR Cup Series. He gets clowned on for being the 4th guy at Hendrick Motorsports. Insert the X to the 48 meme. However, he's the best, quote-unquote, worst Hendrick driver in team history. Just compare him performance-wise to the likes of Wally Dallenbach, Joe Nemechek, and Brian Vickers. In every season of his Hendrick career, Alex Bowman has won a race and made the playoffs with the exception of 2023 when he got injured. Still, it seems like the honeymoon phase for Alex Bowman and Blake Harris is ending. There is a greater expectation for Alex Bowman to perform for 2 reasons. In the 2024 NASCAR playoffs, something seemed to click for the 48. If it weren't for the car getting DQ'd at Charlotte, Alex Bowman not only would have made the round of 8 for the first time, but also he would have changed the course of NASCAR history. The second reason I say he needs to step it up is because the Hendrick Motorsports pipeline is getting deeper. You don't just have prospects like Raja Carruth and Corey Day on the heels of getting into the Cup Series. Justin Haley for Spire reportedly has a deal with Rick Hendrick. Alex Bowman is a great driver, but in 2025, he needs to bridge the gap between his teammates Kyle Larson, Chase Elliott, and William Byron. Without question, there needs to be more moments of Alex Bowman waking up naked on the bathroom floor. Well, Rick Ware Racing is back to being a lolcow in the NASCAR Cup Series. The organization lost Justin Haley in a trade to Spire and lost Chris Lawson to Front Row Motorsports. A team that once had 4 chartered cars in the Cup Series will now field 1 full-time car in 2025, with Rick Ware leasing one of its charters to RFK Racing. Meanwhile, the driver they're going with is Cody Ware. It is easy to understand why NASCAR fans are against this move, not just because this is the greatest example of privilege and nepotism in the NASCAR Cup Series. Cody Ware hasn't been the greatest NASCAR driver, although last season in his part-time stint, he did show improvement. Cody Ware needs to improve in order to justify him getting a second chance. Many in the industry believe that it typically takes about 3 years to gauge what a driver can do. Once a driver that seemed to adapt quickly in ARCA and Xfinity, for example, Ty Gibbs now enters his 3rd NASCAR Cup Series season, still looking for his first win. Grandpa Joe is sad to see his grandson struggle. Changes had to be made at Joe Gibbs Racing, with not only Chris Gabehart taking over as the competition director. Tyler Allen is going to be the new crew chief for Ty Gibbs in this 2025 season. Not only did Allen lead the number 20 team last year in Xfinity to 8 victories and a championship 4 appearance in the owner's points, he also has a solid resume in the Cup Series as the leading engineer for Kyle Busch during his prime run in the 18. Now, if he doesn't win in 2025, is Ty Gibbs on the hot seat? To answer that question, I'm going to point directly to the sign on the shop that Ty Gibbs races for. No, he's not going anywhere, but in 2025, strides need to be shown from Ty Gibbs. In this season, we're truly going to find out what type of driver Ty Gibbs is in the Cup Series and possibly what he's going to do in the future. Ryan Preece is a non-playable character. Like Josh Berry and Chase Briscoe, he is the antithesis to modern NASCAR. He's taken many risks throughout his career, like selling the mortgage on his home to go Xfinity racing. Now don't worry about Ryan Preece going homeless, because he will forever live in Elliott Sadler's head rent-free.
5 laps to go, I passed my teammate, I'm leaving him 5 laps to go to win a freaking championship. And then I get raced and wrecked by Ryan Preece, who's not racing for anything.
We all go. Why not enjoy the go with Charmin Ultra Soft?
Plus, he's taken risks by taking rides at the perennial mid-pack JTG Doherty Racing, as well as a Stewart-Haas Racing going the way of Robert Yates. Years of perseverance have led him to the opportunity to race Cup cars for RFK Racing. Now, I know what people are going to say. Ryan Preece was outperformed by his teammates, but you know what I've got to say to that? When it comes to the 36 races last season, Ryan Preece was the highest finishing driver at Stewart-Haas Racing 9 times. To me, that shows that Ryan Preece was on par performance-wise with his teammates. The only difference was he just wasn't as flashy. At RFK Racing, the expectation for Ryan Preece is that he should contend for wins and a playoff spot like his teammates Brad Keselowski as well as Chris Buescher. Ryan Preece will be one of the most intriguing drivers to watch, especially at the short tracks. Michael McDowell has outlived the life expectancy of a start-and-park driver. Now, for the first time in his career, he has a multi-year deal to race Cup cars professionally. Michael McDowell got the bag because Jeff Dickerson believes that he's the veteran necessary to grow Spire Motorsports. The track record speaks for itself. McDowell took Front Row Motorsports from a sub-25th organization to winning races on pure pace. Now you bring that same driver-crew chief pairing over to a program that places 3 cars in the top 10 at Watkins Glen. Having a driver solid at road courses like Michael McDowell in that equipment might be the thing that finally gets them past the hump. Although there are some questions about Michael McDowell. 2024 was a regressive year, and McDowell seemed to make a lot of bonehead moves like at Talladega and New Hampshire. I think of the Spire drivers, this is going to be the least consistent driver team, but they have the potential upside to actually go out there and win a race. McDowell's veteran presence can also mature Spire's young talent, especially sophomore driver Carson Hocevar. We all know this kid is built different. If you weren't wowed by him winning a pole with a broken leg a few years ago, Hocevar was pushing the top 20 in points as a Cup rookie on a team without Tier 1 support. Carson Hocevar has more talent in one blood cell than a lot of drivers have in their whole body, but he's rather stupid. Hocevar's antics at Nashville and Martinsville showed he still lacks the professionalism necessary to be a successful Cup driver. Maturity will determine Carson Hocevar's 2025 campaign. Does he take the advice from the veterans at Spire like his crew chief Luke Lambert and new teammate Michael McDowell to make him a more credible driver, or does everyone in this season want to be his enemy like he's Jid? While the NASCAR Cup Series continues to get younger, Trackhouse Racing is taking a chance on a 35-year-old Cup Series rookie. Shane Van Gisbergen has the most unique story in modern NASCAR. His racing niche isn't stock cars. However, you wouldn't believe that after watching him race in NASCAR the last few seasons. He already boasts a successful NASCAR resume with a Cup victory and multiple wins in the NASCAR Xfinity Series. SVG now has the opportunity to carry the legacy of the 88 in the NASCAR Cup Series, which, if I'm being honest, why abandon the 97? Either way, this is a massive gamble for Trackhouse Racing, as they've spent millions of dollars and even discarded a young driver in Zane Smith to help develop SVG into a Cup driver. The expectation is that Shane Van Gisbergen is going to win one of the road courses and make the top 16 in the final points. The question is, can he get the job done? I know everyone is riding the SVG bandwagon, but I want to pump the brakes. Yeah, SVG is one of the greatest road course drivers in this season. However, with SMT becoming publicly available, I believe that other drivers in the NASCAR Cup Series have really caught on to what made SVG magic at races like the Chicago Street Race in 2023. It is going to be much harder for Shane Van Gisbergen to win a race, thus it is going to be on the 88 team to give him the cars necessary of being competitive. When you look at the roster, I have questions, not only with Trackhouse Racing, but also Steven Duran. He did show improvement in the second half with Zane Smith, but this is still a relatively inexperienced crew chief. How this driver-crew chief combination adapts will tell whether or not SVG is going to make the playoffs in 2025. Daniel Suarez is a driver that understands the cutthroat nature of this business. He learned that lesson the hard way when he got the pink slip from both Joe Gibbs and Stewart-Haas Racing. When faced with that same pressure in 2024 at Trackhouse Racing, it was easy for Daniel Suarez to just forget everything and run. Instead, he chose to face everything and rise. Daniel Suarez won in one of the most thrilling ways imaginable to keep his job at Trackhouse. The victory was Daniel Suarez overcoming his demons. No longer was he a driver that choked under the pressure. Nowadays, the lack of excuses and all the pressure on him brings out the best in Daniel Suarez as a driver. Maybe that's a good thing for Daniel Suarez, as he's on a one-year deal with Trackhouse Racing, and Connor Zilisch is quickly climbing up the ladder to get to the NASCAR Cup Series. There are no excuses for Daniel Suarez to have another regressive season like 2023, and he needs to build on what he did last year, especially with an extremely smart crew chief in Matt Swiderski that at one point built rockets for Elon Musk. When it comes to Daniel Suarez winning a race in 2025, look no further than Atlanta. His win was no fluke, as Atlanta, under the super speedway configuration, has been the best track for Daniel Suarez. Performing well at Atlanta, in addition to elevating his racecraft at intermediates and short tracks, will determine if Daniel Suarez is racing at Trackhouse in 2026. So if you guys are liking the content that I'm putting out, I encourage you guys to subscribe to the Digital Gas House Patreon. My goal in 2025 is to put out the best NASCAR content possible, and I can achieve that much faster if you guys decide to subscribe to one of the tiers, whether it's $10 a month or $5 a month. With your donations, I can put the money back into the YouTube channel, and thus the content is going to be even better. So if you guys are interested in becoming a member, the link is in the description below. 36 charter drivers and teams have high expectations in this 2025 regular season. However, some are going to fail while others are going to experience the fruits of their labor. It's time to make some predictions for the 2025 NASCAR Cup Series regular season. So after 26 races, this is how I think the regular season standings are going to shake out. Christopher Bell will win his first regular season championship, and this will be the third for crew chief Adam Stevens, meaning that automatically the number 20 team will qualify for the 2025 NASCAR playoffs. Now, when it comes to the regular season standings, it doesn't necessarily define your season. If you're 21st to 36th in the standings, all of this can be overridden with that one victory to lock yourself into the playoffs. When it comes to filling out the 2025 NASCAR Cup Series playoff grid, I made sure to take into account three things. Number one is the attrition of modern NASCAR. We've seen in the Gen 7 era teams not only get more competitive, but more of an emphasis on winning one race to make the playoffs. Last season, we were just inches away from having 16 different winners, and you know what? In 2025, I'm predicting it's going to be all winners. There will be no drivers that point their way in, which is going to make things intense throughout all 26 races. Starting with the crown jewels, as for the Daytona 500, I'm believing in the hype of 20 years of trying, 20 years of frustration. We've seen how hungry Kyle Busch is when he faces adversity in his career, and I believe that in 2025, he is going to become a Daytona 500 champion, which means in the bigger picture, I think Kyle Busch will stay with RCR and sign a 1-year extension for 2026. As for the other crown jewel victories, I've got William Byron winning the Coca-Cola 600 for his second crown jewel win. Meanwhile, Kyle Larson is going to go back-to-back at the Brickyard 400. And while this isn't a regular season prediction, I've got Tyler Reddick winning the Southern 500, which will not only be his first crown jewel victory, but this will also clinch his spot into the round of 12. So 5 drivers are already on the grid, so who else is going to win their way into the NASCAR playoffs? Everyone's hating on this guy because it's an odd year and he's fallen off, but you know what? You cannot deny Smokin' Joe rising to the occasion in special situations. He is going to win the Atlanta race to punch his ticket. Meanwhile at COTA, I've got a first-time winner as Ty Gibbs and Tyler Allen are going to win their first victories in the NASCAR Cup Series. For Ryan Blaney to get in, all he has to do is win one of the short, flat ovals, and I think he does so with a victory at Phoenix in March. While Chase Briscoe is going to be inconsistent in the regular season, he is going to get a big victory in Homestead. Now, when I was making my predictions, I was debating having Chase Elliott not win a race and make it on points. However, seeing how he did at Bowman Gray, I think he's going to go out and win Martinsville early in the season to lock his spot into the postseason. He's going to overcome his demons much like Chris Buescher is going to overcome his demons at Darlington by winning the Throwback Goodyear 400. Trackhouse will have one driver in the playoffs, and while I could have chosen SVG winning one of the road courses, I'm more inclined to go the direction of Ross Chastain winning at least one of the intermediate races in the regular season. So with his 3 teammates well locked in, Alex Bowman is going to be trying to point his way throughout the summer, but when the pressure is on for him to win, I see Alex Bowman winning at Iowa to officially lock himself into the playoffs for the 7th time as a Hendrick driver. So those are a lot of the favorites that everyone has in their NASCAR playoff bracket. The second thing I want to take into account is some unpredictable winners, because modern NASCAR is getting crazy. We've seen tons of unpredictable winners, and that is not going to stop in 2025. Okay, maybe he's not necessarily an underdog since he's at Team Penske, but I have Austin Cindric winning a race, especially at one of the super speedways. Ricky Stenhouse Jr. and Hayek Motorsports have done really well at the super speedways by winning the Daytona 500 and Talladega last fall. I think for the 3rd year in a row, Ricky Stenhouse Jr. is going to win a super speedway race, and this time it is going to qualify him for the NASCAR playoffs. On pure pace, Spire Motorsports will win the Watkins Glen race. Michael McDowell and Travis Peterson are going to dominate exactly like they did at Indianapolis in 2023 to take the final spot in the 2025 NASCAR playoffs. So there's one more thing about this 2025 playoff grid that I want to point out. In every single Gen 7 season, there has been at least one high-profile name that missed the playoffs. In 2022, it was Martin Truex Jr. Oh hey, I predicted that one. In 2023, it was Chase Elliott, and in 2024, who would have thought that Kyle Busch would not win a race to make the playoffs? That trend is not stopping in 2025, as for the first time since 2013, Denny Hamlin will miss the 2025 NASCAR playoffs. I'm going to keep it simple. I think Chris Gale is not a crew chief that is going to get the most out of Denny Hamlin, and it's going to come back to bite him, especially in this chaotic season. Denny Hamlin's #all-in run will not end in November like it usually does, but this time it's going to end in August. So if you guys enjoyed the Spotters Guides episodes, there's the Xfinity and Truck Series versions on screen. Other than that, this is Nathan for Digital Gas House. Life's a beach, and then you drive.